Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire, where we've got an all stakes pick five at the fairgrounds on Saturday, anchored by the Fairground Oaks and the Louisiana Derby. So we'll start with the first leg, which is the Tom Benson Memorial, ungraded at 150,000, eighth race on the card, running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And a lot of these ran in the Al Stall Memorial. Excuse me. And the funny thing is, you look at this grouping, and you take out Nandadeo, who won the race, and really, it really kind of becomes a wide open race in a lot of ways. The track that day was favoring horses up and near the lead. So what I would suggest is, certainly want to watch the turf course. I think there might be a race or two before this one to see how it's playing, because it certainly impacted the race. And Join the Dance was up there for most of the way, and I didn't know that didn't think Joins the Dance had the greatest of form, and I think was flattered by the way the track was playing. So anyway. Then we look here, we've got three horses on the front end. And of the three, the one that looks, probably will be the speed of the speed is Distorted Doro. I did like that effort last time in an optional claimer, and it wasn't that bad a field. It was an awful game in the stretch to hang on all the way. But there's one thing about, not that race, but that was the debut at 4 with a career high Brisnet figure, and is now coming in second off the left, which would normally be a pretty good sign. And I don't think, I think this Distorted Doro could certainly run back to it. It's possible. But there's another thing that, fillies, a lot of times when they run those big efforts, don't really follow it up with a good one the next time. And with the presence of Classic Performer and Wild About Hillary, and you've got a couple other horses who probably Fun with Flags will likely be up there. It's, in stepping up in class, it's going to be a taller order to wire this field. So I kind of went either way. If you want to throw in Distorted Doro into your mix, I could kind of understand it. But I'm just kind of banking that there's going to be a little bit of a regression. Wild About Haley has been running primarily on dirt, and she does have dirt form and has been doing pretty well, or turf form rather. But the last race, she just had it so easy all the way around the track, and I just, moving up in class, changing surfaces. I just have a feeling that may be in for a little surprise when it's not quite the same cakewalk. So. Wild About Hillary, I think will be a pace presence, but that's the extent of it. Having the three of them there, though, should liven things up a little bit on the front end and may help the later runners. Now, looking at this race, there's just you got a lot of vulnerability. Now, take Fun with Flags, Chad Brown, right? On the turf. And this one is coming off a long layoff, and the debut at the U.S. had to run against Cinderella Dreams, and She Feels Pretty. Obviously, tried to stay up with them for a while and then fell right back. Well, this is certainly a much softer spot, and we know Chad Brown does very well with horses off long layoffs. The tab looks good, but as with many horses in here, it's a bit of a leap of faith. And I'm gonna, just can't throw them out. You just can't do it. But it's, in this field, maybe that'll be enough. It's just kind of hard to get a read on Fun with Flags, but I think there's enough there to tell you that we'll probably be pretty competitive. Way to be, Marie. What a frustrating horse. How many times have you seen this filly be right there, poised to win a race, and somebody's always better. I just can't ever pick this horse to win. It has just a too consistent a pattern of it. Is certainly good enough to be in the money in this race. And if you wanted to throw her on your sequence because of this funky field, I guess I could see it. But it's just so many times. Somebody's always better. And to that end, I landed on Eastern Empress for Christophe Clement. I really liked the last race. That's really what I'm going with. This is a horse I know is poised. And, just there's enough to show me that for Christophe Clement, second off the layoff with Joel Rosario in the irons, this one's ready to take a move forward. I really liked the closing kick last time. Got a little held up traffic-wise, but Joel made a really nice run to get her to inside on the rail to make the move up. And I thought it was a really solid effort. If she builds off of that, which Christophe Clements usually do, she's going to be dangerous here. And so that's what I was, had the most certainty about Eastern Empress. Let's put it that way. So that's who I'm picking to win this. Now, you get down to the off-the-pace runners, and it gets really fuzzy. Okay, Amber Cascade hasn't run on turf, but the one thing that Cherie DeVaux is doing here is getting this horse back on Lasix. The two starts on her running lines where she didn't have Lasix, she doesn't run a lick. And that was the case last time. She on dirt, she did not run very well. I went back into the pedigree to try to find some turf and really didn't. And, Free Drop Billy being the son of Union Rags don't really like turf either. So I almost think this is sort of a race to shake this one up a little bit. But I'm not going to go against Cherie DeVaux, not in a race like this. And even though this one's going on turf for the first time, has good enough form on Lasix to show, to demonstrate that I think she can be competitive here. And you're probably going to get a decent price. Probably more a candidate for under, but I'm going to throw Amber Cascade in the mix. Just with the connections and it's going back to Lasix, and it's just a weird placement on turf. But again, I'm not questioning Cherie DeVaux, so we'll take a shot with Amber Cascade. Stir Crazy really seems to have hit the wall at 7 years old. Was going great guns in the last race. The wheels came off. Now, there was one thing interesting here, and I put parenthetically, you see an F by Stir Crazy's name. And the reason is, if you look at her form, she's been wearing front wraps for the last couple of starts, and she did get a win with them. But I wonder if it's to account for a nagging little injury that perhaps felt the worst of it in the last race, and that precluded her from winning because she's not running it 100%. So what I would say is, if you don't see front wraps on Stir Crazy, I would consider that to be a good sign. And if that's the case, Stir Crazy would be a really good selection in here. But obviously, for sequence purposes, it's difficult to know. We're not going to be able to determine that until prior to the race. But since it's the first race in the sequence, if she doesn't have front wraps on, I might consider putting Stir Crazy in as a win candidate. So I'll just leave that to you and throw that little bit, because obviously, when they take away equipment, particularly with front wraps, it's usually a pretty good sign. So anyway, throw that there. Now we come to another one who's a bit of an enigma, Champagne Rose. All right, Kenny McPeak, not renowned for his turf horses, but this one had a pretty good record in Brazil, running on mostly heavy turf. And the first start was off the turf, and okay, you ran him on dirt, but then they followed up with another dirt effort, which seemed a little strange to me. And so now this one finally gets back to her preferred surface, and you get Brian Hernandez in the irons, who incidentally is not on Distorted Doro, even though he rode her to her last win. So this is a real unpredictable, another unknown. We just don't really know, but this is the kind of field where I'm willing to take a shot on a horse like Champagne Rose, because if she does run back to her form in Brazil, it could be good enough. Not overly certain about it, but one to consider for those reasons. Tufani, I didn't think ran badly in the Al stall. It was, I think she put forth her usual good effort. The track was a little bit against her, but she was closing with interest, and with a little more pace to run to, which I think she's going to get here. She's got a shot. So I think she's a solid contender that you certainly have to include. I think without a doubt, this is a spread race. It's just awful hard to, like I say, to me, Eastern Empress is the only one that looks really solid to me. Everybody else, I've got questions about. So we'll go with Eastern Empress and the Tom Benson, but we will definitely spread, because I think this is a wild one to start the sequence. Next leg of the Pick 5 is the New Orleans Classic, a Grade 2, ninth race on the card, running a mile and an eighth for 4-year-olds and up. And this marks the debut of Sierra Leone, number 7. What a great race. This is as I mentioned in my individual posting on this race, it's kind of the immovable force against the irresistible object. You've got the confirmed front runner, Touch Upon a Star, and you've got the confirmed closer, Sierra Leone. And I think they're basically the only two options you have in this race. Looking upon it, we talked about it more in-depthly in the individual post, but Touch Upon a Star is kind of hard not to like. This horse has never been out of the money, brings it every time, and most importantly, runs pretty crisply on the front end. And I think that impacts quite a few horses in here. When you consider the mine shaft last time that a lot of these came out of, Hall of Fame and Comorabino and Moide, Maycox Bay, they were all beneficiaries of a very soft pace set by Maycox Bay, and who I don't think can get the distance here, and I just going to throw out incidentally. But Hall of Fame was able to chase down Comorabino and Moide, who was poised to win the race, but they both had it pretty easy on the front end, and they're not going to have that here, because Touch Upon a Star consistently runs much faster fractions, and Tarantino does too. Tarantino, I don't think, can hang with Touch Upon a Star, but the point being, the pace is going to be pretty lively. And for that reason, I think a lot of those early runners are going to have a real tough time staying up with Touch Upon a Star. It also will help Sierra Leone, of course, to have a little more pace to run into. Of the earlier runners, Hall of Fame, I think, is good enough, especially on Lasix. We know how important that is for his. He seems to be a different horse when on Lasix, and he's going to get it here. And I think, is eligible to build on what he did last time. I just didn't like the fact it was such an easy trip on the front end, or being up near a really slow pace, and it's just not going to get it here. So if he's good enough and can overhaul Touch Upon a Star and Sierra Leone, well, we've got a really special horse here, but he certainly needs to get faster to deal with either one of those two. And like I said, I'm not sure the race shape is that favorable for him. Connecticut is one that, for Brad Cox, he's got 2 in here with Bishop's Bay. Connecticut has been very patiently managed, moving up the ladder from maiden to allowance to N2X to ungraded stakes, and a little bit better ungraded stakes. I get a little nervous when Brad Cox does that, mainly because once his horses show some ability, they usually go into a graded stakes before this. And so I'm a little, maybe it's the timing, I don't know. But when you consider most of his runners there's not a lot of time before they're in graded stakes or they're in a claiming race. It's one or the other, right? So it gives me a little bit of pause. This one has shown some ability, but this is a big step up in class. I think is good enough to be under, but would have to take a really big move forward to take down either Touch Upon a Star or Sierra Leone or Hall of Fame for that matter. Comorabino Amoide ran a good race, but last time in the mine shaft. But that's two races where had every chance to win and couldn't close the deal. Now you're going against two monsters who are clearly better than you are. I do like this horse's tenacity, but seems to be a little short. So I'm going to use under. Now we look at the later runners, and Sincero, he's not good enough to win this race, but should be at the back. A lot of these I think are going to get worn out trying to stay with Touch Upon a Star, and that's where Sincero can get up for underneath in your trifecta. That's the extent of it. Same to be said for Uno Mas Bourbon. I just don't like two closers, and Sierra Leone's obviously superior, but you can use Uno Mas Bourbon underneath. That's the extent of it. So let's talk about Sierra Leone. Okay. Won the Breeders' Cup Classic, and seems to have solved a lot of those problems with stride that precluded him from winning a lot of races. You all know the history. I'm not going to repeat it. So we can presume that he's got it in gear now. I mean, you don't win the British Cup Classic unless you do. So there's that. However, we also know that Chad Brown likes to train in sequences, meaning first start, second start, third start, building to a big race. The New Orleans Classic is not the race Sierra Leone's been pointed to, right? There's something else down the road, whether it be the Whitney or, the Stephen Foster, whatever it might be. This is the launch-off point. It's not the end. So this may be the time you can beat Sierra Leone. Does he have to be at his very best to win this race? No, he does not. Is he going to have a lot of things in his favor? Yes. The tab looks good. Everything, all systems are go. And this horse has run well off the bench before. I'm just thinking that this might be the time you might get him not at his best. That's all. If you want to pick Sierra Leone to win and single him in the sequence, I don't blame you at all. And I'm just going to go with Touch Upon a Star because I don't see anybody who's really going to bother him on the front end. And I think again, I just think maybe this is the time you try to beat Sierra Leone. It's a very tall order. To me, it's one of those two. That's it. I don't see anything from any of the other runners to tell me that they're ready to eclipse either one of those. And if they do, they would have to be a monster effort. And of all those, Hall of Fame probably has the best chance to do it. But, I just think it's a real tall order. And I just can't see it, particularly when he's going to have to run on the front end with a little more pace than he did prior. So we're going to try to beat Sierra Leone with Touch Upon a Star. But, it's a tall order without a doubt. But to me, it's one of those two in the New Orleans Classic in the second leg. Third leg of the All Stakes Pick 5 is the Muniz Memorial Classic, a Grade 2, 10th race on the card, running a mile and an eighth on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. And, when we do these sequences at the fairgrounds, it always seems we have to spread on the turf races, and this is no exception whatsoever. You've got a full field of 12, and I'll tell you, it's pretty wide open. It really is. Johnny's Fireball just always seems to factor at the fairgrounds in these big fields, and his tab is really pretty sharp. And so I think this horse is ready to roll here. I think it's a tall order for him to take him all the way, but he looks like he's going to be the speed of the speed. He's certainly going to have some challengers in Higgins Boat and perhaps Smoky Mandate. But he just always, you can't underestimate him. I have done it before, and it's always been a mistake. He finds his way into the money quite a bit. That would be where I think he's probable here. I'm not sure he's a win candidate, but Johnny's Fireball just working out too well and too good a back class in these type of races to exclude. Spirit of St. Louis, he proved that he's a lot better than just running in New York bred races. Won the Pegasus Turf, did so with a really nice effort, coming up late, overtaking Integration, and so he's certainly a horse with quality, better than, and he's proved that he's a little better than perhaps I thought he was. But I got a couple problems though. He ran his career high figure for a horse who's 6 years old, and coming off a Grade 1 stakes race. It's very conceivable that this one could bounce. That's really the only knock I have. Everything else looks fine. It's just I have a feeling the other Chad Brown is the way to go. In this race we've got the other Chad Brown, we've got the other Cherie DeVoe as well, and that's the one I settled on. Rebel Red. I think this is a horse was coming into his own as of last year. Has had a nice long break. Cherie DeVoe is very good bringing horses off a long layoff, and has shown versatility. Can come from all the way in the back and can go on the front end and be effective. I like that. Being by Frankel doesn't hurt either. And in a race that, I think there's a lot of options. Horses coming from off the pace is certainly where you're going to want to be, I think, because there is definitely going to be some pace in this race. And so I settled on Rebel Red just because you've got Jose Ortiz that they're winning 43% of the time, her and Cherie DeVoe. And this one, I think, will fire well. And like a little better than his stablemate, Brilliant Birdie, only because he's run against older consistently. Brilliant Birdie, while breaking his maiden against older, was exclusive to 3-year-olds last year and was really good. And Brilliant Birdie, I like a lot as a horse. I had in the American Derby, early on, and I just really like this horse. My only concern is stepping up against older in a graded stakes race off the bench. That's it. This is a horse that I think has a lot of quality, could win this race for sure. But for now, I'm going to say under, just because we're not so certain about against older at this level. That's all. What Say Thee from Mike Maker is a 7-year-old who I thought ran really well last time. 7-year-olds, certainly you like them better off the bench, but this is an ultra-consistent performer. The tab looks great. This one looks really ready to roll, and I don't want to exclude, particularly from coming off the pace. What Say Thee, another one I want to include in the mix. Redistricting for Chad Brown, another one coming off a long layoff, and we know how Chad Brown does with these, and it's the other Chad Brown, certainly going to be, I think, running more freshly, and has been a little inconsistent throughout the course of his career. But again, you just have to throw a lot of that out when you're dealing with Chad Brown on the turf. It's just the way it happens. Clairvaux Stables is a client, and I fully expect that this one will run a good race. Whether it's good enough to win, we'll see. But I think is one you have to include in the mix. So to me, this is very, very wide open. And again, I'm going to settle on Rebel Red. But redistricting won't surprise me if he wins, nor will it surprise me if Brilliant Birdie wins. I'm just thinking, really more than anything else, if he had one under his belt against older, I'd be more confident about him. But a wide open affair in the Muniz Memorial. So now we've come to the meat of the All Stakes Pick 5, the last 2 legs, and we're going to go through them, and then we'll finally look at our ticket. We'll start with the Fairgrounds Oaks. It's the 4th leg, Grade 2, race 11 on the card, running a 1/16 for 3-year-old fillies. And to me, 1-horse race. It's good cheer all the way. I just think that she's faster than the rest of these. The few of them have... a lot of them, there's still question marks about them. But I think Good Cheer has just demonstrated she's, for my money, she's the Oaks champion right now. She's the best filly. And I think she's just faster than the rest of these. I think if you were going to try to beat her, maybe it was the last time. And, she was a little slow to get going, but once she did, she just blew that field away. And I don't know that there's anybody in here who can really challenge her. Ahava, I think, moving around 2 turns in her second start showed a lot of precocity. She's certainly going to have to run a speed figure better than that around 2 turns, which is a bit of a tall order. But, they can freak on the front end when they're moving around 2 turns for the first time. This one seems to have a lot of talent, being a half to Vava. If you're looking for a horse that maybe could do it, if Ahava freaks on the front end, possibly. Her laugh to me looks like the most logical contender. I really, she had a terrible break in the Rachel Alexandra, but she really showed something to me in that she was able to be resilient, re-rally, and still get up for second. Now, the only thing qualm about it is that she ran the same fractions as she did on the front end when she won the race prior, and I believe it was the Silver Bullet Day. So that's a little strange, but nonetheless, I think her laugh definitely has some quality, and she will have to run faster, and she's going to have to be awful good to beat Good Cheer. But if tactically she can get up around Ahava and get the jump, maybe. We'll see. They don't want Good Cheer all the way revved up because you got the Oaks to think about. So we'll see what happens. Good Cheer, the one to beat, I've mentioned. Girl Math is one I had picked for the Virginia Oaks, but she scratched out along with Gowell's Delight. And but I think coming from synthetic in the Cincinnati Trophy, she didn't run badly. Got her stride going a little late, but it may just have been she doesn't prefer that. But I think it was a good indication that she is fit, and on a track she didn't like, she was still able to, get going late, and that tells me this one's in good shape. So no, I don't think it's a threat to win. It's going to have to get a lot faster, but I think is certainly one you can think about underneath. Quick Kick is a late runner, always has a chance. Didn't do too badly in the debut at 3, and is certainly poised, and it's highly possible this one can move up second time off the layoff. So another one that potentially could upset the apple cart, but I think a lot of things have to happen. And honestly, since Good Cheer comes from off the pace, it neutralizes any advantage Quick Kick might have if the pace is quick on the front end. So to me, Good Cheer, probably the best bet of the day so far. We'll see what the rest of the card looks like, but I really like Good Cheer in the Fairground Oaks. Now we come to the featured race, the Louisiana Derby, 5th leg. And you got to love that about Fairgrounds, by the way, that they do these all-stakes pick 5s, don't have a getaway race at the end of some kind of state-bred maiden. It's all stakes, and it finishes with the race everybody wants to see. So kudos to the Fairgrounds for that. Louisiana Derby is a Grade 2, 12th race on the card, run at 1 mile and 3/16 for 3-year-olds. And we take a look here, and I'm going to make a little, we have individual postings on the Oaks as well as the Louisiana Derby and the New Orleans Classic for that matter. But I'll just talk about this race a little bit. John Hancock is the favorite. And I apologize I don't have odds for the other races, but they haven't posted them yet. I was able to get these through ulterior means, and I'll leave it at that. But John Hancock, to me, is I'm still puzzled that they scratched him out of the Virginia Derby, which, to me, in retrospect, the way that race was run, I think it would have been a pretty easy 50 points for John Hancock. Instead, they move him to much deeper waters, around 2 turns at 1 mile and 3/16. And really, what to me, this is basically an all or nothing race for John Hancock, because I don't think he's got enough points after the Sam F. Davis to get in. So they really must be banking that he's going to get the money. He's going to be probably the speed. Yinzer and Furio, I think, will give him a bother, but neither one of them is really. Yinzer's taken so long to break his maiden, and now he's coming off Lasix, I believe. And Furio, in his optional claimer last time, was run down by instant replay, and so I don't think he's coming to this race in particularly good form and seems to be human. But they are going to bother John Hancock. That I think is certain, and he'll be getting the pressure as usual from Built as well. So I don't think he's going to have it easy on the front end. And the Sam F. Davis, he was able to get out in the front end in pretty soft fractions, and consequently had something left to hold off Owen Almighty. And we all know what he did in the Tampa Bay Derby. But the thing that concerns me is this is a step up in class, and you look at John Hancock's pedigree, not a lot of stamina underneath. So this might be a distance that is a little far for him. And you couple that with deeper waters, I'm throwing him out. And now I will preface that in the playing this race individually, I'm going to throw him out. For the pick 5, yeah, I'm going to hold him in there, just so you know, as a saver. But I'm really not confident that the way he's been going, that he can win this race. I really have major league reservations about it. I settled on Caldera, and here's why. Now, you can look and say, okay, well, Getaway Car beat him, and Getaway Car laid an egg last time. You're right. But here's the thing. Caldera was wide all the way around that track that day at the Sunland Derby. Excuse me. Has 2-turn pedigree to run all day. His class rating is increasing with the race rating, which means the tougher the competition is, the better he's getting. And his work tab looks like he hasn't lost a thing, and he's firing bullets. And I think this is a race that he's bred for. He's progressing, and I think the coach, has been spotting him pretty well. You saw what American Promise did, but I think he believes this is his Derby horse. So he put him in Louisiana Derby. And I think there's some vulnerability on some of the lower priced horses, but a lot less on Caldera than on the others, and that's who I'm going with. Built, if you notice, as the races are getting longer, he's finishing further back. Now, I'm not so sure it's a question about distance as it is class. I'm really not certain of that, but it's hard to overlook the fact that he is finishing further and further back. And now you're going to what is probably the toughest field he's faced overall, and you're going a mile and 3/16. I like this horse. I've said all along, I think we know what he is. He's a nice horse, but he's a cut below the best. I think he's absolutely good enough to finish in the money here because he's a fighter, and he's a horse I'd be proud to own, but I really think he might be up against it here. So I would only use him for under. Vassimo, I didn't think ran badly. I believe it was the Rebel Stakes last time. It might have been the Reza Star. Sorry, a lot of races, but I didn't think he ran badly, and I think that he is one that certainly can benefit from his last start, and is bred for the distance. And I think there's a lot of things working in Vassimo's favor, especially at 12-1, and when you consider what I perceive to be vulnerability of the more prominent horses. So Vassimo, one I think you need to put in the mix. Chunk of Gold, we tipped him out at 43-1 on the synthetic to dirt angle, but I think he's a little more than that. I thought, you go back and watch that Risen Star. Certainly nobody was going to beat Magnitude, but it was the way Chunk of Gold went about it. First of all, he was not all the way from the clouds. He was about mid-pack, and he started his move at the top of the turn. He did it in such a way to tell me that this is a horse on the improve who's much more than just a suck-up closer. And he's bred for the distance. I like him. I mean, I don't like the price. Hell, I'd love to get him back at 43-1 again. But at 8-1, I think he merits a lot of consideration. And I think he can win this race because he's on the improve. Conversely, Instant Replay, I really don't want any part of. He just ran his career high on Lasix. He's not going to get it here. And I didn't like the fact that he was kind of so-so racing against some of the better 3-year-olds like Sandman, for one, and so he looks kind of, it's dubious to me. Now, he was impressive when he ran past Furio in his last start, but just, I can't get past the fact that he had Lasix, and it seemed to really elevate him. Ran a figure much faster than anything he had run before, so he'll beat me. I'm just not going to use him. You want to throw him in for underneath, okay, but I don't see him winning this race. Tiztastic, well, we know what he is at this point. Now, unless he becomes another magnitude, he's going to do what he does, which is just keep running. He just doesn't seem to have enough in the tank late to make a dent in any field. Now, he does have a track that is the longest, and that should benefit a horse who likes to run all day. It's just the top end, and it's just having that extra oomph in the stretch that really precludes him, I think, from winning this race. Can you use him underneath? Absolutely. And especially when you consider the vulnerability I've mentioned to some of the others, yeah, he's much more a candidate for under in this race than he has in others, but mainly because of the distance as well. So Tiztastic one certainly I want to use. Hypnus I just didn't. I thought he ran okay in his last start, but not enough to get me really excited about him. And when you consider he did win his maiden on Lasix, they took him off, and he ran all right, but I don't think he ran. There was nothing to tell me that he's going to make this massive move forward. But hey, Kenny McPeak, stranger things have happened with him. So, in short, Caldera is my pick to win, but I think there's a couple other options, namely Chunk of Gold. So, looking at our ticket, we're going to spread in the turf races, as I mentioned. We're going to go 1, 4, 11, and 13 in leg 1. Leg 2, now I've left the options open. That's the New Orleans Classic. I'm going to go with Touch Upon a Star. You want a single Sierra Leone? I don't blame you at all. I wouldn't talk anybody out of it. I think you can go either way. I'm just going to try to beat Sierra Leone here. But whatever you do, single one way or the other, I think, because they're the only two in that race. The 10th race, I think, is the most wide open of all. I'm going to spread with 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Rebel Red, number 7, is my key, the horse I'm picking to win. But it's a really tough race. There's a lot of ways to go. In the Oaks, leg 4, race 11, we're going to single Good Cheer. I can't see how she's going to get beat. And I think she's the best filly heading into the Oaks right now. And in the Louisiana Derby, we're going to, now as I mentioned, I am going to use John Hancock for the pick 5, because if he does win it and we don't include him, I will shoot myself. But so we'll include John Hancock, but 2, 5, and 7, Caldera is my main pick, and I really like Chunk of Gold's chances as well. So the fact that we have 2 singles makes our life a lot easier. So we can go 4 times 5 is 20 times 4. It's an $80 ticket on a $1 base. So obviously, if you want to drop it to 50 cents, it's a $40 ticket. When you have 2 races that I think are pretty well determined, races 9 and 11, we certainly don't want to spend a lot of money. And I think we can definitely stagger outside of the caveman, and hopefully we can go heavy with our primary choices and clean up. But that's the way I see it. I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. I wish you the best of luck as always. We will have a full card selection posting with best bets and value plays as we did for Colonial Downs. We have individual postings out there right now for the New Orleans Classic, the Fairgrounds Oaks, as well as the Louisiana Derby, so go take a look at those. And we're going to try to get some stuff, maybe some things out for Turfway, because that's a fun track to play, and there's always great value lingering. You just got to find it. So let's see. I'll do a little digging and see if I can, and if so, I have something I think is worth noting. I'll post that as well. If you like content like this, of course, please like and subscribe. And again, thanks so much to all of you who continue to grow our community. We very much appreciate it. Good to have you on board. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.